From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. Hey, James, how are you today? We're back with another guest, so that's a pretty exciting show.
Oh, it's great to be back, especially a guest. And I'm doing all right, doing some traveling, so I might sound a little different to our audience because I'm in the car. I do apologize, but it's been one of those days.
I understand, and we appreciate you being here, and we'll take you in any way we can. So, James is in incognito mode on video for those of you watching the video, but you could certainly hear him, and he sounds great. So, we're happy to have him with us today. And before we get to introduce our guests, I will say and put a shout out to James Bond, LB7SE from the YouTube channel. He's an audience member and a fan of the show who suggested this topic, and it's a episode on C Sharp. With us to discuss that is a subject matter expert, a friend of ours, somebody that I've gotten to know and really appreciate. He's Mike Krejci, and he's the director of programming for CTI. And welcome back, Mike.
Thanks, Steve. Glad to be back. Always good to hang with you. And James, it was good to see you guys in person a couple weeks ago in Orlando for Infocom. So glad to be on. Always glad to help improve the community.
Thanks. And Mike was last on in episode 111. But before that, if you want to hear his origin story and so forth, those date back to episodes 34 and 35. So Mike's an old timer with us, and we're glad to have him. And he always is brings us some great insight and wisdom. And it was great. This episode is being recorded in June of 2025, so we recently returned from Infocom, and it was a good time and a good chance for us to all get to reunite in person. So, Mike, I'm going to open this up to you, and I'm going to ask you to help us take it in whatever direction you see fit. But when we're talking about C Sharp, C Sharp is a modern programming language. It's different from the sandbox versions that are branded by some manufacturers. So we'll get into that a little bit. But help us a little bit to frame out what we're talking about when we're talking about C Sharp, so that our audience can get some context here, and then we'll dive into how it's applied in the AV world.
Absolutely. So, right, C Sharp is not an AV language natively, right? It's an object-oriented programming language, so we can get into it in a little bit, but it's got over 3 million C Sharp developers as of this year, according to JetBrains when they did a survey of the industry, of the overall, programming. So 3.5 million describe C Sharp as their primary language. But what Stack Overflow figured out was over a quarter of all developers program in C Sharp in some level, right? That might not be their first language, but that is a language that they're programming in. So this is a massive language, Microsoft's behind it, that there's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of people who know what C Sharp is, and it's not our little small community of AV programmers, right? You ask somebody, how to program a Crestron system. Sure, in our circles that we fall in, there's a bunch of people who do it, but overall in the world, it's a pretty niche industry. But when you talk about programming C Sharp, that's huge, right? I don't even think Crestron sold 3 million processors in the last couple of years, right? And there's 3 million people developing C Sharp, right? So that's a lot. But that means there's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of people who know what they're doing. There's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of help out there. So it's awesome. And personally, for me, it is one of the most fun languages I like to program in. But it's really cool. And Crestron, I don't like to talk about manufacturers in these type of calls in these episodes, but really I give the credit to Crestron, right? Because they came out with Simple Sharp Pro when they released their 3 series processor back in 2012 is when they said, "Hey, we have this language, Simple Plus at the time, but we see the roadmap. We need something more advanced than this." And that's when they started, um, and then when they came out with the first 4 series processor, VC4 virtual control, that's when they came out with full C sharp instead of their watered down version. But it's really cool. I got it. I don't know where the question was there or where the
No,
answer.
that was a great, great overview because what it basically says is now we're linking our little world, our proprietary world, to a bigger mothership, and tapping into a lot more resources, tapping into um, libraries and knowledge bases and so forth. So to me,
Oh
it
yeah,
really opens a big door.
the libraries, right? You touched on that, Steve. It's um, there's a couple of years ago I was programming something and I needed to interface with this third party service. Well, somebody had already written a whole bunch of C sharp libraries for it. So I was able to import a NuGet, right? All the whole libraries that had already been done, and all I had to do is call them. That made my API work zero, which is something you can't, that we would love to be able to do in, the standard AV programming, but it's not there. But these services that all these people are connecting to, they're doing the dev work, they're open sourcing it. It's a community, right? Programming in C sharp and not just a handful of guys in their basement.
Which we hope that we could start to shed that image after decades. But yes, that has been the way the AV programmer has been visualized by many.
Sitting in
Um,
our bucket, in our basement, in the closet, however you want to go.
Clothed in some form or fashion, and probably drinking Mountain Dew and eating a lot of junk food. James, if you want to jump in a little bit here, it may be hard for us as people who don't do this programming on a daily basis to either understand or relate to the power of what Mike is describing. But from your perspective, what does this mean about for our industry, and how do you see something like this being utilized?
So I'm first gonna jump in a little different spin on your question there, Steve, about how do we see it is how I see it. I'm gonna start with first, and what it is I'm returning home. Yeah, I'm not really programming much anymore, so it sounds a little weird, but I actually cut my teeth learning programming in C sharp. Classes I took in college, we used C sharp. My first early programs I wrote were all done in C sharp. One of the systems I built for the university I worked for a while, the back end, again, C sharp. So like to me, it's like returning home. Now I haven't touched C sharp in years. It would take me a while to pick it back up. But as Mike says, there is so much resources out there that it's easy to pick back up. So expanding back to your question there, Steve, like that what it means to us is we are expanding our resources and our circle of contacts that we can get help when we are struggling. Because we don't know everything, and like we know that manufacturers are starting to play nice with APIs, but not always. So having, I forget the number Mike said, 3 point something billion uh, developers out there, that's a huge brain power that we can leverage and get help. So I would say this is great for the industry. And I just see we were we were moving forward in AV, but it was very closed. Opening it up and doing this open source and using modern programming languages, we're going to see a whole new market for programming for AV, because there's going to be so many more resources, so many more people, and so many bigger brain power putting work into it.
I'm going to follow this up, and I'm going to ask probably both you and Mike this similar question. Is there's been a lot of talk about the fact that we can bring people in out of college because of the use of modern programming languages. To your point, this is the first language you learn. This is what's being taught in schools. Mike, I'll let you start with this. Is this changing the type of the makeup of an AV programmer from a hiring and a recruiting standpoint?
Uh, I'm going to answer yes and no to that, Steve. And for so one, yes, right? We can bring bring young people in, after high school, after college. They've learned C sharp, or they've learned Lua or Python, right? Any of the modern languages, and they learned that in school, and we can bring them in, and we don't have to teach them programming. That's great, right? They've learned how to program as a team in school. They've learned the languages. They've learned, all the basic parts of programming, and we can skip that step, right? They come in and ready to code and just, knock things out. What that hasn't taught them is what a lot of us learned in the field, in sitting on the bucket, is AV, right? That hasn't been taught to them. Sure, they can figure out how to, write an API, write a module to control this device with this API, or do this, complicated thing with data. Great. But if they don't know why a video signal isn't getting from here to there, or why audio isn't getting happening in the room, or why there's echo, then we've got to now go and teach that part. So we're able to bring in some of the new people in, and bring them in with this programming experience, which is great. We can get them off the ground running. We can get them just, writing chunks of code, but at the end of the day, we still have to train them on something, right? And it's now the AV part that we're having to teach the newer people on. So it's kind of also dividing up the type of work, right? This person's great at writing code, and we can put them in a room and they can just sit and type in a keyboard in their basement, right? They don't have to go out in the field. And they can just sit and write code, and then we can go hand it off to the next person to go make it work. So we are utilizing the younger people who've learned this code, but it's not the silver bullet everyone hopes it is.
I was hoping for a little bit of that insight, so thank you there. And because I would concur, but I think that, and James, if you want to weigh in on this, I don't want to steal your thunder, so I'll leave my uh, thoughts to the end. But how would you look at it? Is what Mike's saying? Do you think that it'd be easier to to find somebody that knows AV and teach them the programming side, or do we have this untapped resource that we didn't have before?
So again, I know that's the old age question. It's kind of like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Um, get a person who understands AV and teach them programming, or get someone who understands programming, teach them AV. Either way, you need to teach somebody one part of the skill. So what is harder to teach, or let me rephrase that. What is harder for you to teach someone else? Like, if you are a good programmer and you can feel you can teach your programming skills to someone coming in, and you need someone who really understands the AV side, then that's what you need to go with. Vice versa, if you really understand the AV side and you can really teach that to a person coming in, but you don't understand the programming as much, or you're not as strong, you need someone who's strong in the programming, who can learn. The key aspect is both ways. They need to be able to learn. they have not just the willingness to learn, the eager, the fire, the drive to actually put the work in to learn. I mean, I came from IT, I came from programming, and I got dumped into AV, and I fell in love with it. So I do come to the AV, especially the programming side, from an IT sense. Where one thing I think Mike really hit on, and I know I think he kind of played it a little more politically safe, and which I understand, and maybe I'll be a little more direct here, is I do feel, yeah, we are entering the C# world, the modern programming world, which is great, but we're doing it how AV has been doing things, our own way. Instead of leveraging, the real full IDE and the full language of C# or the real Python or whatever modern language is out there, that these companies are like, oh yeah, we're C#, but you got to do it this way because we're AV. We got to do it our way instead of conforming to the standards out there that's already been built. Like I said, maybe unpopular opinion there. The one thing I think will be really beneficial from really opening it up to open source, the modern programming language, is something that everyone has been asking for. Everyone has their own take and style on, but no one really has the solution yet. And that is that one pane of glass. We deal with a lot of the equipment. We do program. Yeah, we can make our own dashboards and all that stuff, but sometimes it's hard. But if everything is talking in a modern programming language like C#, Python, or whatever, especially C#, is we can build that dashboard. We can build that one pane of glass that will work across everything.
Good, definitely good points there, Mike. Mike, would you want to comment on anything there?
There was something I had there and I lost it. It was a good point, though. I'm pretty sure. So
I'm sure you'll have many more to share. Let me see if I can take this a little further, because my thoughts about this are kind of what James was saying too, is that the what's special about AV is that we're always working with less resources, and it's almost like you take away many of the foundational pieces and you say, okay, go. And then, like James said, it's C#, but not really. Although there are some implementations now that are using more of the full versions and more of the current versions, and not to get into specifics there, but
yeah,
I
you
guess
can be definitely successful right now programming in a third-party IDE, whether it's JetBrains or Visual Studio, being able to push through, SSH and PuTTY or SSH and SFTP and never open up a manufacturer software. So that is definitely possible and feasible, and we're doing it, right? So,
so let's talk a little bit now about how we are applying C# to AV, and maybe some tips and or also some things that you would tell people to be wary of or be careful about, Mike.
yeah, so I think where we found the greatest use of C#, right, or as a language, is when we are dealing with a lot of data. If I was controlling, a switcher from unnamed manufacturer and it was, 1*1 exclamation point, that's not a whole lot of data coming to or fro from that device. So I don't need to, spend a whole lot of time trying to figure it out. As we've get, now with devices passing whole, payloads of JSON data or XML data back and forth, it's now a lot of data to try and figure out what all is it sending me, what all am I sending it, what do I need to do with that data? That's really hard to do in just string parsing. So being able to pull apart those JSON files, those JSON bits from, a REST API almost becomes easy, right? In C Sharp or some of them, or in Lua or any of those languages, because they've got a library. Oh, you want to deal with this? Oh, you need this bit of information. Boom, 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 done, right? And that's where where we, utilize it probably the most, but that could be a configuration file, right? Steve, your guys' module for handling config files in JSON, right? It's using C Sharp, right? That's not coming from an API. That's a file you're putting on the processor, but that's the same data, and that's where we use it. And because with things like virtual control and standardizing rooms, right, James? You work in a university. You're not building one classroom. You're building a whole building of classrooms, a whole campus of classrooms. Well, I don't need 50 programs. I need one program. But they're all going to be a little bit different. They've got a different room name. They've got a different amount of monitors, different set of sources. Well, I can just write a config file instead of doing that. Well, now I can write that in C Sharp, pull that data in, and then if I have to go make a change, I can just push out that file. And that seemed, that's where we've found our most success in that C Sharp. It's not necessarily in that one-off room for that one client, for that one four-way divisible room they're doing that's, odd and different than everything else. We're still utilizing, the traditional AV methods of programming with that, right? Whether that be whoever the manufacturer is, we're still doing it the old way because we have, people with years of experience in AV doing things that way. Well, I'm going to let them keep doing that because that's where they're successful and where they've built their success and how they work and how it works well. But when we need to do something where it becomes more efficient in doing C Sharp, that's when we're going to go there. And it's really kind of a thought exercise on everyone. Where does this make sense? How can we do this one program the most efficiently we can?
That's a
You have
great
the benefit
insight.
of, having a team of programmers who have all those different skills where we can kind of divvy up those tasks. We're not a one-man show or a two-man or a three-man, person shop. We've got a team and we're able to separate out as we need to.
Does a language like C Sharp help facilitate, or is it more powerful when working with a team than individual? Is there advantages to that?
Yes, absolutely. We can have multiple people work on the same thing at one time. I don't know if the group, the audience listening here, they've all worked in name your program, and it's okay. I'll work on it for a couple hours and I'll send you it, and you go work on it for a couple hours, and oh, I'll copy and paste this thing in, and okay, it's where did we go wrong? And that's how the story ends most of the time, and it becomes a pain where if you get as you get into C Sharp and you learn some of the traditional programming skills of libraries and separating out your class files, you can have a whole team of people working on it all at the same time. Um, I remembered what I was going to say earlier, right? We talked. I spent some time with high school students last year who were doing a technology based program in high school. They spent half their day doing this more technical learning, and they did a couple of them did a micro internship with us. And I said, when I was talking about the program and trying to get them interested in AV as they were picking who they wanted to do their internship under, I said, you guys want to go into software dev, that's where you see yourself, right? You're doing comp sci as in high school, you go work for, name big company here in town as a software developer. You're going to be writing part of a service that, validates somebody's birthday. And that's what you're going to be doing as a software dev starting off, right? You're not going to be writing the front end of some, big thing that you can go point out to everybody and go, hey, I did that. You're going to validate data, right? You're doing, I dare say busy work, but you're not doing great complex things. You're not, unless you work at a startup, you're not going to write the whole thing by yourself. You work in AV, you get to see something happen, right? So it's that same skills they're learning, but you can see the beginning, the middle, the end of a project in AV with these same languages. But the same thing with I was going there with the services, right? You can do, oh, you want to go control the audio logic, go write that. You want to go do this part, go write that. I need to bring in Steve's module, I'll bring in Steve's part. You want to bring in James's thing, I'll do James's thing. And it all works together as we try and as you learn this. And that's how these websites, these programs, these applications are running. It's not one dev, sitting in a room doing it like we've done in AV forever. It's a team. It's teams of teams of teams of teams, right? Programming at all these, the big software companies, not just one guy. So as soon as we get out of that mentality, yeah, many people can program one thing at once.
That is so valuable. Unfortunately, I don't want any of the GCs to hear this, because then they used to tell us, can't you add more people onto the project to get the code done quicker? And I would tell them, well, there's only one person that could type, but now we have an answer to that, so we just can't let it out to the people that don't deserve to hear it. James, any thoughts you wanted to fill in? Actually, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, I'm back. I lost power there in internet for a second. So.
No. All right. So my last comment there, Steve, is I like how you say, oh, we can't let the GCs know, because our common sense was, oh no, we can't throw another person on that, because only one person can work on it at a time. Well, now we can throw more. Yeah. So if they ask, we go, yeah, sure, we can throw more resources at it. You throw more money at it, because it's going to take money. I mean, so yeah, we can throw more people at it if they want to throw more money at it. So we do. At least now we can have that answer when a project is being delayed, because I work in higher ed. Classes start when classes start. There is no, oh, this room is not ready, we're going to push the class back another month. That ain't happening. Classes start when classes start. So if projects are getting delayed because of things, especially on the programming side, and the boss comes and goes, hey, we need to get this room up, what's going to take? And I can go, well, I can hire 3 more programmers, I need X number of dollars to bring them on to write it. Cool, no problem, let's do it. Now I have that option. I'm no longer go, well, we got one programmer, he's working 80 hours a week, we just got to wait. Now we can throw more resources at it, as long as we're getting the valid resources to support it. But again, great conversation. And yeah, I again, thank you, Mike, for talking about this.
I think your point is well taken, James, and I think also where Mike can go with this is that we have the ability to work more efficiently. We're building out an infrastructure, and we have a lot more at our disposal to be able to be flexible when it comes to doing things, which will turn into probably shorter timelines, more cost-effective solutions, because of the leveraging a modern programming language like C# is one of the takeaways that I got out of this. It seems like we are some of the struggles that we have had for a long time will get resolved as long as we start to think differently, and as long as we start to lean into the tools we have in a smart way. it's probably a good place for us to wrap this, but I want to give Mike a chance if you wanted to share any tips or anything that our audience should know or that will help them to get started with C# or any modern programming language.
So for those, from personal experience here, if you have never programmed in a fully object-oriented method in C#, when you go from a traditional AV language to C#, your first program is not going to be good. And I know that for a fact. I look back at some of the first modules and programs I wrote in C# after, looking at Crestron's examples and coming over from someone who'd done, Simple Plus and AMX and whatnot into C#. And I was a hack and it was ugly and I am ashamed of the code I wrote. It worked. It worked, but I am ashamed of that code I wrote. It has gotten better. There's plenty of room for improvement, right? Big tip is you can never have too many .cs files. Make classes, right? It is object oriented. Make your objects, make classes. Do not try and throw it all into one, 3,000 line CS file. That you don't get bonus points for doing that. With that, there are plenty of great resources that are easy to digest on the internet. There's some fun, I'll call them fun C# learning websites where you can just take bite-sized chunks of code and write them to learn how to write C#. Take advantage of those, right? You can get them on your phone, spend a couple minutes a day doing it, figure it out. Also, lots of great YouTubers out there. Tim Corey out there on YouTube for C# is fantastic. Not only in how to write the code, but also some best practices that exist for C#. When it comes to solid and dry, I'll let you guys look that up yourselves. But, there are methods and processes that exist out there and plenty of content. But just remember, your first program's not going to be good. You're not going to be an expert C# programmer day one, even if you're a great AV programmer. It'll work. You'll get it across the finish line because that's what we do in AV. But yeah, you'll get there.
And I think that if you don't do that, then you're not progressing. So I would say that applies to a lot of things that we do. So very good tip and something to really know. And it's no better time to start than now. So I love some of these resources, and I'll put some of them in the show notes. And if you have a few that you wanted to share, I'll make sure that I include the specifics of those. Mike, with that said, how could people get in touch with you, learn more about what you're doing at CTI, get in touch with CTI, and so forth?
Absolutely. So for CTI, go to cti.com. We're one of the largest integrators in the U.S., all over the country, 40-something offices. And as of this, we are now across the pond over in the United Kingdom. So we're everywhere. We're always looking for great people, but we also can help you out with any of the solutions you need as a end user. And for me, it's the Mike Krejci on LinkedIn is the best place to find me. So that's where I'm at.
Wonderful. And Mike's in
Thanks,
our
Steve.
Ask the Programmer community on LinkedIn. So I'm going to give a little pitch for that, as James always does. But you can reach him there, and there's a good place for us to continue this conversation. James, how can people get in touch with you, learn what you're up to, continue the conversation, and get some more tips and tricks?
I want to actually close on this. I think if our audience takes anything away from this was a great episode, wealth of knowledge from Mike. But his last statement there. You're not going to be good at the beginning. I mean, I noticed that when I went from traditional IT, C sharp writing to AV. My first AV program was not good. And I still look back at it and go, how was this working? But it reminds me of the meme of a kid playing piano, and I guess it's the father, just a figure over, going, "You're no good. You should stop." And the kid responds and goes, "If I stop, I won't become good." So you got to put the work in. You're not going to be good in the beginning. Put the work in. Great point there, Mike. Trying to get a hold of me. Ask the program community on LinkedIn. Probably the best way to get a hold of me right now.
Excellent. And for me, you could reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social media. LinkedIn is where I spend most of my time these days, as I think many in the AV world do. Um, you can check out Control Concepts, who is a sponsor of this show, and provide some of the building blocks that Mike alluded to, whether we're integrating with a product or integrating or adding more functionality to systems. We use C Sharp a lot, as well as other programming languages to do so. And you can get some of those downloads at our website, controlconcepts.net. We can be found on both video and audio versions. Video is on YouTube. The audio is on your favorite podcast platform. Check us out, and either way, leave a message, comment, feedback, as well as join the Ask the Programmer community on LinkedIn. And perhaps you can give us an idea for a show or request to be a guest. And if it wasn't for one of our listeners who might not have had this show, this show may not have been possible. So please continue to share your thoughts and feedback and let us know what you want to hear more about. And thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. This has been Ask the Programmer.